welcome back to my channel. We are going to talk today about the 8 books that I read in August. So most of these books I don't have physically to show you. I'm just gonna put them up on the screen because most of them I've already unhauled. But the first 2 books I read in August were for Ketchupathon, which is hosted by Krista from Books and Jams and Amy from Amy's Bookish Life. And the theme this year was create your own barbecue. And the goal of Ketchupathon is to read down your book of the month books, and I successfully did that. First, I read House of Glass by Sarah Pekkanen, and this was so anticipated. I was so excited for this book because Sarah Pekkanen's book from last summer was one of my favorite thrillers of the year. This lawyer is called in to help with this custody battle between these 2 parents that are getting divorced, and the dad has been charged with the murder of the nanny who fell out the window. But then it's also rumored that maybe the creepy child that she was taking care of pushed her, and there's also the dad's mother that lives at the house with them and is currently taking care of the child. So this lawyer is having to look at all of the aspects of this child custody case to basically decide and tell the court who she thinks should raise the child. And that's basically it. Like, literally nothing happened. And it was one of those things where I saw it coming and I was like, oh no, don't do that. Like, that's so obvious. And then that's exactly what happened. I just did not care one iota about any of the characters. And the ending was a dumpster fire. And it was just like, that was just such a waste. Like, I had an idea in my head of what would have been better, and I got to the end and I was like, yeah, my idea would have been way better. So unfortunately, this one was a huge miss for me, and I rated it 2 stars. And then the other 2-star thriller that I read was The Neighbor's Secret by Alison Heller, and again, nothing happened. This is about a bunch of women who live in this community and they all have a book club. And so that was kind of interesting to see like which book they were reading each month, but I don't think they were real books. I think they were like made up books. And so it was kind of fun getting to like read the invitation to book club every month, but honestly that was the best part of the book. And the whole plot was there's a vandal that's like breaking and entering and stealing things and vandalizing things around the neighborhood, and they're trying to figure out who did it, and everybody thinks that somebody else's teenager is doing it. That's literally the entire book. Are you done? Sorry about that. It's almost her dinner time and she's getting restless. And then I tried to read a couple more books for Ketchupathon and I ended up DNFing all of them. And honestly, I kind of wish I DNF'd both of these. And then the last 2-star book that I read is by Danielle Valentine, and it was Two Sides to Every Murder. And I read this for my friend Gwen's Patreon for the podcast Talk Bookish to Me. So I discussed this with the Night Owls for the Night Owl Book Club, and this was YA, and so I know that I'm not the target audience for it. And while I think it was an okay story, and I think it was good if you are a teenager, there's just some things about it that I just couldn't get behind, and it just laid out exactly the way you would expect. And I want to discover some things for myself, and I want to be shown things, not told things. So we went into all of our thoughts in that discussion, but essentially it's a fine thriller if you read YA, or if you are just getting into thrillers, or if you are a young adult. Next, I had 3 3-star books, the first of which being What Have You Done by Sherry Lapina. I have now read most of Sherry Lapina's books. I think I'm missing 1 or 2, and I genuinely enjoy her thrillers, but other than The Couple Next Door, I haven't really had a huge hit from Sherry Lapina yet. This is about a little town in, I think it's Vermont, and a girl's body is found in a cornfield, and everybody has a motive. There's all of these unique characters in the town, and her friends, her mom, her boyfriend, her boyfriend's parents, literally everybody in this town has a motive. So you're just trying to figure out who actually murdered this teenage girl. Was it anything earth-shattering? No. But I read this for my friend Jessie's online book club, Sleep When I'm Dead book club, and so we did discuss this live, and I'll link that discussion down below. And it was a generally good book to discuss. It just didn't do anything different. It wasn't earth-shattering. It didn't add anything new to the thriller genre. And there is a little bit of a like magical realism element in it that I don't particularly care for in books, but some people love it, and a lot of people did really enjoy this book that were on the discussion, and it's not that I didn't enjoy it, it just wasn't anything special. Next we have Dear Mrs. Bird by A.J. Pierce, and this was recommended to me by Krista from Books and Jams, and this I gave it 3 stars. It was fine. It's about a girl who gets a job at what she thinks is a hard-hitting newspaper, but it's actually a women's column where people write in and ask for advice. So this girl's job is to weed through all of the letters that come in and give them to Mrs. Bird to respond to in the articles. But Mrs. Bird has a very small list of the things that she will actually reply to, and none of it is stuff that people actually need advice about. So this girl takes it upon herself to write back and become Mrs. Bird. And then there's this whole other subplot of her friend, and it's during World War II in England, and I just didn't care about any of that, and honestly I started skimming through those chapters, but I just felt like all of the characters were really immature and just not very believable. And so while it was a nice story, I read it on 2 plane rides. I read it on a plane ride to Chicago and then back from Chicago. So it didn't take me very long. I flew through it. And if you need a nice palate cleanser that's like nothing negative, happy ending, then this would be a good one. And then my last 3-star book is Where the Lost Wander by Amy Harmon, and this is about a family on the Oregon Trail. I'm sure I'm not alone in the group of millennials that loved the Oregon Trail. The daughter of the family has recently been widowed, and they are on the Oregon Trail with a man who is part Indian, and they fall in love, and it's very sad. A lot of sad things happen, but I just don't like Amy Harmon's writing style. This is the 3rd book that I've attempted of Amy Harmon's, and I've DNF'd the other 2. So I kept going because I liked the premise, and I thought that maybe I could get to know the characters a little bit better and become attached to them, but it's just something about Amy Harmon's writing that I just can't get down with. And so it's just sad and kind of really, really slow. Most of the book was really, really slow, which I understand the Oregon Trail probably moved slowly, but like, I don't need the book to move as slow as the actual Oregon Trail did. And then the only 2 books I have here to show you, because they were rereads, I have The Escape Room by Megan Golden. I got this from McKay's in trade credit recently because I just had to have one for my shelf. This, I feel like, has a lot of haters because it's misunderstood. It's underrated and it's misunderstood because it's called The Escape Room, but it has very little to do with an escape room. So hear me out. All of these high-level accounting execs that are in investing and Wall Street and just like bigwigs in New York accounting, they are all told you need to go do this team building activity in this escape room. Well, they get stuck in the elevator before they even get to the escape room. And so you have that timeline, and then you have another timeline of a girl named Sarah Hall who is joining where they work at Stanhope and Sons in New York. And so it's about her experience working for Stanhope, and then you realize why these people are stuck in an elevator, and there's a lot of shady stuff happening in this firm and in this organization. And this, I have never enjoyed a workplace corporate thriller before, but this is it. This has me on the edge of my seat. I have reread it. This was my 3rd time rereading it, and I don't know, I just feel like it's so misunderstood and it's so different, and it does things that you wouldn't expect. And I never thought corporate investment banking could be so thrilling. And Megan Golden does a good job of using terms from that type of work and that type of environment, but you don't feel stupid that you don't understand what they mean. She explains them without being obvious that she's explaining them. And I love that about this book. And I think you should try it. Don't let the name fool you. It's not actually about an escape room. It's about investment banking, but just trust me on this one. And then last but not least, we have Small Great Things by Jodi Picoult, one of my favorite books of all time, probably the 6th time I've reread this. This is about Ruth Jefferson, and she is a labor and delivery nurse, and she's just going about her day helping this baby, and then she's told, you can't care for this baby. Turns out the parents are white supremacists and they don't want any African-American personnel to touch their child. But then when the baby goes into cardiac arrest, Ruth hesitates because she's worried. She doesn't want to lose her job. And as a result, the baby passes away and she is charged with the death of this baby. So then we have Kennedy, who's a public defender, and she is representing Ruth, and she says, we don't need to pull race into the courtroom. Race should not be brought into the courtroom. And Ruth is like, it's already there. Like, there's no getting around it. And so they both have to learn a lot about the justice system and about race, because of course there's macro racism and obvious prejudice like the white supremacists in this book, but then there's also the micro small things that we take for granted, and me as a white female take for granted. This book is sad and has a lot of hard-hitting topics, but it is so necessary and so important, and Jodi Picoult does so much research and talks to people so that she's sure she's relaying the proper voices. And typically I feel like Jodi Picoult books have like a lull in the middle, and I almost appreciate that sometimes because you need a little bit of emotional reprieve before her big courtroom dramatic scenes, but I don't feel like that with this. I feel like this is page churning. I feel like it is super fast paced, and I learn more every time I read this book, even though it's not like the information has changed. I just feel like I absorb it differently. Okay, those are all 8 books that I read in August. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know down in the comments below if you read any of these books and what'd you think of them. Or if you haven't, is there any book that I've now convinced you to pick up or not to pick up? Make sure you hit that subscribe button. It really helps out my channel. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.